There is something that I used to call football heritage. The last time Manchester United won the Champions League, which didn't happen a lot of times, was on 2011. The final was 2011. Since 2011, 2012 out in the group phase. The group was almost the same group as we had this season. Benfica, Basel and Galati from Romania. Out in the group phase. In 2013, out at Old Trafford in the last 16. I was in the other bench. In 2014, out in the quarterfinal. In 2015, no European football. In 2016, comes back to European football, out in the group phase, goes to Europa League, and on the second knockout, out of Europa League. On 2017, play Europa League, win Europa League with me, and goes back to Champions League. In 2018, win the group phase with 15 points in possible 18 and loses at home the last 16. So in 7 years, with 4 different managers, once not qualify for Europe, twice out in the group phase, and the best was a quarterfinal. This is football heritage. And if you want to go to the Premier League, the last victory was 12-13, and in the 4 consecutive seasons, United finished 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th. So in the last 4 years, the best was 4th. This is football heritage. Means that when you start the process, you are here, you are there, or you are there. Is heritage. When I arrived in Real Madrid, do you know how many players played quarterfinal of Champions League? Xabi Alonso with Liverpool, and Iker Casillas with Real Madrid, and Cristiano Ronaldo with Manchester United. All the others, not even a quarterfinal. That's football heritage. Do you want other real? I'll give you a couple more real. In the last 7 years, the worst position of Manchester City in the Premier League was 4th. In the last 7 years, Manchester City was champion twice, and if you want to say 3 times, because they will be in 1 more week, 2, 3 or 4, and they were second twice. That's heritage. Do you know what is also heritage? Is that Otamendi, Kevin De Bruyne, Fernandinho, Silva, Sterling, Aguero, they are investments from the past, not from the last 2 years, from the past. Do you know where are many of United players that left the club last season? See where they play, how they play, if they play. That's football heritage.
Jose Mourinho once said it loud and clear. The problems at Manchester United are bigger than the manager. At the time, nobody wanted to listen. It was easier to blame the manager, but the truth Mourinho pointed out was never about him, nor about one season. It was about the way Manchester United is run. Because what does it tell you when 3 former United managers, Mourinho, Solskjaer and Ten Hag, all got sacked in the same week? It tells you this is bigger than tactics, bigger than personalities. It's about the structure, the players, and the way projects are managed from the top. Yes, the footballing legacy weighs heavy, but the legacy of bad decision-making weighs even more. For over a decade, the United board have made the wrong calls on signings, on coaches, on long-term planning, and Mourinho is right. No manager, no matter how talented, can fix a broken system alone. That's why the moment of truth has arrived with Ruben Amorim. The answer is not to sack him. The answer is to finally back a project. United must change the way they operate, the way they think, the way they build. Because if they don't, history will repeat itself again and again and again. Just look at what happened this past week. On August 28th, Besiktas sacked Ole Gunnar Solskjaer after being dumped out of the Conference League playoffs. 1 day later, Fenerbahce fired Jose Mourinho following his Champions League elimination against Benfica. And 2 days after that, Bayer Leverkusen dismissed Erik Ten Hag after only 3 official matches. 3 former Manchester United managers gone in the span of just 1 week. Since Sir Alex Ferguson retired in 2013, the club has gone through coach after coach, and none have survived the storm. Ferguson himself ruled for 9,733 days. Then came David Moyes, only 295 days. Ryan Giggs, a mere 68 days as interim. Louis van Gaal lasted 679 days. Mourinho reached 900 days before the axe fell. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer stretched it to 1,068 days. Michael Carrick, just 12 days as caretaker. Ralf Rangnick, 179 days. And Erik ten Hag, 850 days, already history. 9 different men, 9 different approaches, from strict disciplinarians to smiling motivators, from tactical professors to serial winners, all swallowed by the same black hole. And still the same problems remain unsolved. So the question is clear. With hindsight, and with Amorim now under judgment, do we finally see Mourinho's time at Old Trafford differently? Was he right all along? When Jose Mourinho arrived at Old Trafford, he was supposed to be the answer. United had just lived through the complicated era of Louis van Gaal, and the club wanted something very different.
I think it comes in the right moment of my career, where I feel obviously very well prepared, very stable, and
Mourinho came in with scars from his exits at Real Madrid and Chelsea, but also with a reputation as one of the sharpest tactical minds in the game.
again, please don't call me arrogant, because what I'm saying is true. I'm European champion, so I'm not one of the bottle. I think I'm a special one.
In 2016, many saw him as the closest thing to a modern-day Sir Alex Ferguson. Yes, his time in Spain had only delivered 1 La Liga title, but he was still one of the few coaches in the world considered able to match Pep Guardiola blow for blow. That's why the 2016-17 Premier League season was sold as a blockbuster fight. Mourinho's United in red, Guardiola's City in blue. The stage was set for years of battles, for a rivalry that could define English football, and at first it seemed promising. In his debut season, Mourinho lifted 3 trophies: the Community Shield,
Crossing towards Ibrahimovic.
the League Cup,
Jesse Lingard scores!
and the Europa League.
Actually, Mata's ball in towards Fellaini, and Smalling with it! Manchester United have won the...
United were back to winning silverware, and fans believed the Portuguese was building something serious. But the truth was more complicated. The gap to Guardiola's Manchester City never really closed, and inside United's dressing room, a silent war began Mourinho against Paul Pogba. What should have been the core of his project became a constant battle of power, influence, and frustration. Slowly, Mourinho stopped talking about how to make United great again. Instead, he reminded everyone of his past victories at Porto, Chelsea, Inter, and Madrid. His message turned bitter, his energy drained, and his relationship with the board collapsed. The end came not because he forgot how to win, but because Old Trafford refused to give him the tools or the control to win. Now, pay close attention, because this is where the cracks in Manchester United truly begin to show. In the summer of 2017, Mourinho asked for 4 signings. In the end, he got 3. Victor Lindelof from Benfica, Romelu Lukaku after a 25-goal season with Everton, and Nemanja Matic from Chelsea. It's a difficult market, Mourinho said at the time. I can't say I'm happy, but I don't blame anyone. This is the reality. On paper, it was over £150 million worth of talent. But history has not been kind to those decisions. While United thought they were competing, their rivals were widening the gap. Liverpool signed Virgil van Dijk for £75 million, a fee many called crazy, yet it transformed their defence overnight. United's big move in January 2018 was Alexis Sanchez, swapped for Henrikh Mkhitaryan. At first, it looked like the missing piece. Mourinho now had 2 of the Premier League's top scorers from the previous season, but Sanchez was a disaster. Just 2 league goals in his first campaign, more goals for Chile than for United the next season. Still,
and he was absolutely terrible.
Mourinho somehow dragged United to 2nd place in the Premier League in 2017-18. He even called it one of his greatest achievements.
I also think that sometimes we comment what we see, but we don't know what is behind the scenes and that influence what we see. And I think that is a fundamental thing. If I tell you, for example, that I consider one of the best jobs of my career to finish 2nd with Manchester United in the Premier League, you say this guy is crazy.
And he had a point, because that squad, compared to City's machine under Guardiola, was nowhere near strong enough. But instead of building on that 2nd place finish, the club stumbled. Lindelof and Eric Bailly had arrived. But the centre-back United truly needed never came. Van Dijk was gone, Harry Maguire's price skyrocketed. Toby Alderweireld and Jerome Boateng were dismissed as too old. So in the summer of 2018, United's only reinforcements were Fred and a teenage Diogo Dalot. Mourinho's complaints became constant background noise. Results began to collapse. The dressing room fractured. And the board, tired of the noise, pulled the trigger. The 2018-19 season ended in disaster. Mourinho sacked in December, replaced by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. United finished 6th in the league, knocked out of the FA Cup by Wolves, dumped out of the League Cup by Derby, and eliminated by Barcelona in the Champions League quarter-finals. A season of chaos, and proof that Mourinho's words about deeper problems were already true. To say Mourinho's spell at Manchester United was a disaster simply because of his football heritage is to miss the bigger picture. Because Mourinho's story at any club is rarely simple, it always unfolds in 3 clear phases. First, there is the honeymoon. Success arrives early, built on his us against the world mentality that unites players and fans behind him. Then comes the second stage, us, the few, when only his closest lieutenants and the most loyal supporters remain fully convinced. And finally the third act, Mourinho against the world. This is where the criticism begins, the open fights with referees, the digs at injured players, the constant demands for reinforcements. Tottenham lived through it. Roma lived through it. And now even Fenerbahce has seen the cycle in action. But in Rome it still brought glory a Conference League trophy in 2022 and a Europa League final in 2023. The truth is simple. Manchester United's problem with Mourinho was not just Mourinho himself. They hired a coach who only succeeds with absolute control and then refused to give him that control. The same mistake Real Madrid had made before. The same control he had at Porto and Inter, which made him a Champions League title. In other words, the marriage was doomed before it even began. The board wanted Mourinho's fire, but not his authority. And when you take away the one formula that defines him, the ending was inevitable. When Ole Gunnar Solskjaer took charge, Old Trafford finally felt alive again. After the dark final months under Mourinho, here came a smiling face, a club legend, and a man who knew exactly what it meant to wear the United badge. Brought in as a caretaker, Solskjaer won 6 of his first 7 games. Suddenly, Paul Pogba was dancing again. Anthony Martial was smiling, and the fans could feel a spark they thought was gone forever. At first, the plan was different. United's executives were looking for a new sporting director and a permanent manager at the end of the 2018-19 season. But Solskjaer's bond with the players and his connection with the fans made him impossible to ignore. Then came the night in Paris. Down 2-0 from the first leg, United stunned PSG 3-1 at the Parc des Princes.
It's Rashford!
A miracle comeback sealed by Marcus Rashford's last-minute penalty. That night entered modern football folklore, and within weeks, Solskjaer was given the permanent job. He became the first former United player to manage the club since Wilf McGuinness in 1969, and many hoped his knowledge of Ferguson's glory years would bring back the old habits, the winning culture, the DNA of Manchester United. For a moment, it almost worked. Solskjaer became the first post-Ferguson manager to secure back-to-back top 4 finishes in the Premier League. He led United to semi-finals in the FA Cup and League Cup. And for the first time in years, fans dared to dream that the club was slowly finding its way back. So, why Solskjaer was sacked? The breaking point for Ole Gunnar came in May 2021, when Manchester United reached the Europa League final against Villarreal, a chance to finally crown his project with silverware. But after a grueling 120 minutes, the match went to penalties. David De Gea missed the decisive spot kick, and Villarreal lifted the trophy, leaving Solskjaer shattered on the touchline, fully aware that this defeat had cut deep into his credibility as a manager. That summer he pushed hard for reinforcements, and the club responded by bringing in Jadon Sancho, who had been chased for years, and Rafael Varane, a serial winner from Real Madrid. And then came the headline move of Cristiano Ronaldo returning to Old Trafford on deadline day, a signing that was supposed to be the decisive blow to turn United into title contenders. For the fans, it was pure ecstasy, but inside the coaching staff, it was a tactical nightmare, as Solskjaer later revealed when his assistant Kieran McKenna asked immediately, "How are we going to defend?" And even Ole himself admitted afterwards. It was probably the wrong decision for everyone, but at that moment, it felt like the right thing. The gamble backfired brutally, because while Ronaldo scored goals, the pressing system collapsed. The midfield was exposed and the defensive structure broke down, leaving the team vulnerable and unbalanced against the top sides. When Varane suffered an injury in the autumn, the problems multiplied, results collapsed, and after a humiliating 4-1 defeat to Watford in November 2021, the board had no choice but to sack Solskjaer, bringing to an end the fairy tale of the smiling assassin who had once reignited Old Trafford's hope but could not solve its deeper flaw. When Erik ten Hag arrived at Manchester United in 2022, the expectations were immense, because this was the coach who had taken Ajax to the Champions League semi-final in 2019, beating Real Madrid and Juventus along the way, and the belief was that he could finally bring a modern, structured identity back to Old Trafford. At first it looked like the right choice, as in his debut season, Ten Hag delivered the League Cup ending a 6-year trophy drought, and guided United to a third-place finish in the Premier League, while the following year he went one better by lifting the FA Cup at Wembley against Pep Guardiola's Manchester City, giving the fans hope that the club was turning a corner. But beneath the silverware, the cracks were always there, with humiliating defeats such as the 7-0 thrashing at Anfield.
It is another! It's 7 for Liverpool!
Tactical inconsistencies that left United looking fragile away from home, and questionable transfer decisions, most notably the £86 million spent on a right winger who could barely use his right foot. By the summer of 2024, Ten Hag kept reminding the world that he had delivered 2 trophies in 2 years, yet that was not enough to mask reality. United had just finished 8th in the league, their lowest position in over 3 decades, and the flaws that had once seemed like minor setbacks had grown into fatal weaknesses that completely undermined his project. Adding to that, his relationship with Cristiano Ronaldo turned toxic, with a public fallout between coach and legend creating divisions in the dressing room and fueling constant headlines off the pitch, making it almost impossible for Ten Hag to maintain authority or harmony within the squad.
I was very disappointing for the communicator of Manchester United, to be honest. I never had a problem with any club, with any coach, and they suspend me 3 days, which is I felt a lot, and it was a shame.
Was it humiliating for you?
I think so, yes. I have to say the truth, what I felt.
In October 2024, the board finally acted, and despite the trophies, despite the flashes of hope, Ten Hag was dismissed, becoming just the latest manager to be consumed by the storm that has defined Manchester United since the end of the Ferguson era. Just like the 2 managers before him, Erik ten Hag also found himself on the outside almost as soon as he stepped away from Old Trafford. 2 months, 1 competitive win, 1 draw, and 1 defeat were all he had to show for his time in charge of Bayer Leverkusen before he was dismissed, a decision that shocked many for its speed but underlined how fragile his standing had become after leaving United.
Ten Hag sacked after 2 games. Leverkusen were not playing around, and this now means in the space of a week 3 former Manchester United managers have been sacked one by one.
Through his agency, SEG Football, Ten Hag made it clear that he never felt fully supported by the club, hinting that the backing he had expected was never truly there. On the other side, Leverkusen's sporting director Simon Rolfers defended the decision, stating bluntly that building a new and successful team with this setup was not feasible, closing the door firmly on Ten Hag's short-lived tenure. Now the storm has reached Ruben Amorim, and his cycle at Manchester United has already written some of the darkest pages in the club's modern history. With records nobody wanted to see, the worst league position in decades, the most goals conceded, the fewest scored, humiliating defeats such as the Europa League final against Tottenham, and even losses against 4th division sides.
Can do differently.
I think they spoke a little. I think they gave the response on the pitch today, so I don't need to talk about that.
The question is obvious. Should United keep faith in Amorim? And the answer, difficult as it may sound, is yes. Because Mourinho was right when he spoke about football heritage. If United continue to change managers, they will continue to inherit the same failures. Amorim did not take over a team in shape. He inherited a squad that was broken, mentally and tactically. Since his arrival in November, United have only won 8 of 30 league matches, scoring just 35 goals, results that would break the spirit of any club. And yet the truth remains, no matter how poor the numbers, no quick fix exists if United keep tearing down projects before they are built. Could Mourinho, Solskjaer, or Ten Hag have done better if given more time? Perhaps. But the deeper problem has always been structural. The Glazers and now Ineos have tried to replicate Ferguson's model of all-powerful manager. But without the structure or conditions needed to succeed, every coach is set up to fail. that is the mistake United keep repeating, believing that the strengths of each new manager will compensate for the weaknesses of the one who came before, when in reality, the club itself does nothing to minimise those weaknesses while they are in charge. Amorim must be given that chance because without stability, there is no path forward. The latest transfer window was acceptable, but incomplete. The goalkeeping issue was finally addressed with Senna Lamens, yet the midfield still screams for reinforcements. Even so, Amorim has shown sparks of progress. The spirited display against Arsenal, Bruno Fernandes' raw outburst after his penalty against Burnley,
It's in. Lead Burnley by 3 goals to 2.
signs that the players are still fighting for him, still desperate to win. This is why patience is required. Amorim has a plan, even if it feels rigid at times, and the squad trusts him. He inherited a poor football heritage, with Marcus Rashford, Harry Maguire, Rasmus Højlund, Luke Shaw, and Andre Onana all struggling to deliver, but he has already tried to fix the attack, and his work will now be judged on how he builds transitions, restores consistency in midfield, and strengthens balance across the team. Casemiro must rediscover his level, Bruno needs confidence, Kobbie Mainoo needs minutes, and in defence the development of Lena Yoro and the recovery of Lisandro Martinez will be crucial, alongside trusting Matthijs de Ligt and shaping Lamens into a reliable goalkeeper. The job of Manchester United manager is, and always will be, one of the hardest in world football. Mourinho, Solskjaer and Ten Hag all took the challenge, each with different levels of success and failure. Now it is Amorim's turn to carry the weight of the badge, but if United truly want change, this is the project they cannot afford to abandon.